2019 was a great year if you're an Oregon Duck fan. It was a great year if you're an Oregon Duck player, or again if you're just part of the Oregon Ducks community. But it also was a season that you have to look back and say, "Damn, we were this close." The Oregon Ducks was this close from potentially competing in the college ball playoffs. They were maybe one game away, and it was a hiccup to Arizona State that ultimately damn near ended their season as far as reaching the college football playoffs. This still was a very, very successful Oregon squad compared to what they've done over the last 3 years. They haven't really gone to the college football playoffs or have any type of success in the Pac-12 since that 2014 year, and with Marcus Mariota. So obviously they've had to rebuild. They've had to they went through two different coaches. It was more trying to get back that Oregon Duck swagger. It was trying to rebuild what Chip Kelly and Marcus Mariota, Darren Thomases, the Anthony Thomases of the world, the LaMichael James of the world, the LeGarrette Blunts. It's what those players have done for the program for so many years. It was trying to get back that identity, and this was it. You look at what they've done this season, it was pure domination for the most part for the Oregon Ducks. Besides maybe literally couple of hiccups. You look at that Auburn game. They damn near dominated that Auburn game for almost the majority of the game. You can tell Oregon was the better program, but they slipped up. They kind of did choke in my opinion in the second half. They slipped up, and again, it was pretty much a toss-up pass from Bo Nix to the Auburn receiver, which he caught it, and that was pretty much the game. And then you look at the Arizona State game, Jaden Daniels. Obviously, this was a game that if you would have won this, or I think Oregon would have made it to the college football playoffs. Jaden Daniels in Arizona and Herm Edwards, Arizona State. Those guys came in there. They competed strong. They caught Oregon off guard, and they won that game. It definitely sucks if you're an Oregon fan, because if you have to look and say, damn, if we would have won one of those games, even our slip up to Arizona State, if we would have beat Auburn and took care of business, we'd be in the college football playoffs potentially instead of Oklahoma. Because Oregon and Utah for so long were ranked even ahead of Oklahoma. It just goes to show you, man, that you just never know what happens in college football, and that you always got to be prepared. You always got to bring your A game, and you just have to take care of business. But really, besides those two hiccups, you look at the offense, and Justin Herbert coming back after being a projected number one pick. He comes back. You have a whole bunch of weapons. You have a great recruiting class thanks to Mario Cristobal. You got the number one player in the country in Kayvon Thibodeau. You brought in guys like Mace Funa. You pretty much dominated the entire state of California, which that's what you want to do. The West Coast is pivotal compared to some of the other teams in the Pac-12. I mean, the West Coast is pivotal. Matter of fact, until the entire conference. So for you to win the Pac-12 is an absolutely huge accomplishment. But then you go out there and your players, man, I mean, they rotated players on the defensive side of the ball. They rotated players on the offensive side of the ball. A bunch of players started to really play that we haven't known. And I think that all that experience is going to definitely benefit itself for next year. It was quick. It was tempo. It was physical offense. I've really never seen an Oregon team an offensive line that pretty much dominated the entire competition. I mean, you're talking about all five guys. Those guys off that offensive line could have easily won the Joe Moore Offensive Line of the Year award. It easily could have won it. Just the dominance of the offensive line led by Panay Sue. My goodness, that offensive line was absolutely dominant. Defensively was one of the best in the country. Again, just kept rotating player after player after player. Just so much depth from true freshmen all the way to seniors or fifth-year seniors. It was ridiculous the amount of depth that the Oregon Ducks even had on their team. And we saw pretty much this Oregon team run through almost the entire Pac-12 except for Arizona State. They ran through it. So when you look at the end of the season, and you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. You ran through the Pac-12. You defeated a Utah team that Utah was this close before potentially going to the college ball playoffs as well. And you dominate Utah, and you really show that you guys can compete with anybody in the nation. But then you look at that Rose Bowl game, And even though you guys didn't make it to the college football playoffs, the Rose Bowl is still there for you guys. It's not a playoff game, but it's the granddaddy of them all. It's one of the most, if not the most legendary bowl game in all of college football history. You guys go in there against a really, really good Wisconsin football team. You guys faced some adversity during that game, but you guys bounced back from that adversity. You guys fought to the end. And arguably, what could have been game of the year between that Oregon-Wisconsin game, you guys prevailed. And you brought back the Rose Bowl trophy back to Eugene. It was very, very emotional. You saw players start to cry. We saw some emotions from Mario Cristobal. It was just a really, really good thing if you are an Oregon fan or a player or if you're part of the Oregon community. Because this is not a fluke, ladies and gentlemen. This is more of a you guys pretty much planted the flag. We're back. We got the wings on our helmet. The swag is back. The inventors of swag in college football are back. And we're here to stay. And if you look at the players that are returning back next year, look at the offensive side of the ball. Yes, you lose Justin Herbert. They lose 4 guys off their offensive line, but you return arguably the best offensive lineman in all of college football in Sue. Then you look at the running backs. You got all 3 of your running backs and C.J. Riddell. All 3 running backs are back. Take a look at my notes here, guys. C.J. Riddell, Travis Dye, Cyrus, those guys are back. You look at the receiving position, Johnny Johnson, he is back. You look at guys like Josh Delgado, who didn't play most of the year. Micah Pittman, who was hurt the majority of the year too. Those guys will be returning. I mean, they pretty much got Addison. Most of the receiving production is also back. So offensively, this team is going to be fast-paced, it's going to be physical, and it's going to be ready to roll. Defensively is where the strength really lies for this football team. I mean, you look at guys like Kayvon Thibodeau, for God's sakes, who emerged as one of the best defensive players in all of college football off his freshman year. You look at Jordan Scott as a nose, was absolutely great. You look at Javon Holland, might be the best safety. Brady Breeze really emerged late in the season. You look at Mace Funa, who was just a guy that was constantly in the backfield, tackles for loss, and he was more of a rotational player. You do lose a guy like Troy Dye, but getting about 9-10 starters and just a plethora of just so many reserve and rotational players that played a lot. That had tackles for loss, pass deflections, interceptions, sacks. I mean, you can name it all. And just looking at the film and just schematically, these players fit the bill. These players fit the mold of what Mario Cristobal really wants and really envisioned for this team. And when you got the majority of your defensive line coming back, you look at the linebacker position, it's loaded. You look at the secondary, might be the best secondary in all of college football coming back. And you look at what they have returning. Not only do you have the best defense in the Pac-12, you might just have the best defense maybe in all of college football. And if you guys can solve the quarterback situation and solve the offensive line situation, we could be talking about a playoff team in the Oregon Ducks. Again, the offensive line, it's going to take some time because that's the most important unit, I feel like, in all of college football. Without that offensive line working, it's going to take a while for these. It takes a while for a new offensive line to gel, and losing that much experience that played that many damn games, even if you got the best offensive line in all of college football, still, there's 4 other guys on that offensive line. It takes experience. It takes some time for that unit to gel. But if that unit can gel, if the quarterback situation can get right, we're talking about a team that can definitely not only win the Pac-12, but potentially make it to the playoffs and go beyond. It wasn't that long ago that Oregon was this close to potentially winning a national championship. We'll have to see if Oregon can replicate what they did last season. Because going into 2020, there will be teams that would definitely challenge Oregon. You look at teams like Washington, for perfect example. Stanford, I think, will get better. USC, I think, will definitely get better. There are some teams that would definitely challenge the Oregon Ducks to take that Pac-12 crown.